And so some of these investors were able to take opportunities here. One interesting thing, Karan, the book is primarily about John Paulson. However, there were not many, but there were multiple investors around the country who saw something going on with housing and wanted to figure out a way to either protect themselves or short it and take advantage of it. So I thought it was interesting that not a lot again, but multiple people were seeing this. So why don't you go through some of those people?
I'm sure there are more people than who the author has mentioned in the book, but these are the ones that we were able to find. He's talked about Bill Ackman a little bit. We'll get into each investor. I'm just going to mention them first. So we're going to talk about Bill Ackman, Seth Klarman, Bill Gross, Peter Schiff, and Buffett to some extent, maybe a little bit of Monish at the end.
Yeah.
So let's start with Ackman because he's also had his own greatest trade, and that was more recent, like you mentioned, in the whole 2021 pump that the Fed had done. But back then in 2002, Ackman had initially started off by shorting Fannie and Freddie, and he kind of lost money on that trade, despite being directionally right. He was too early. And in his mind, these two entities were too big to fail, and the government they're essentially quasi-government institutes, so like they're not going to let them fail. So Ackman did take his loss on that investment. And then in 2002, he started shorting MBIA, which is a bond issuer. They basically give the ratings on bonds. And the way this trade kind of got on, the author doesn't talk about it, but it's something that I've kind of looked up. He took a look at MBIA. MBIA didn't actually start off by issuing ratings on corporate debt or mortgage-backed securities. They were in a completely different business, but they got into this business and then they were highly levered. He could see the fraud, and he had I think a 4 or 5 year battle back and forth with MBIA. And from 2002 till 2007, he was wrong and people called him stupid and, he has no idea what he's doing. And then in 2007, they eventually crashed. He made a lot of money for his investors at that point. There's a whole book about it called Confidence Game. I'm not sure if someone in the audience has read it, but that's a very interesting story of Bill Ackman. Do you want to talk about his more recent greatest trade also?
Yeah, as I understand it, he was watching what was happening over in China with what we now know as COVID-19, and he saw what was happening. He saw that it was going to come to the United States and the entire world. And as I understand it, he bought credit default swaps on corporate bonds, insurance product that would rise in value if corporate bonds were lowered in value. And apparently he got 100-bagger out of it. And
in a month.
It was in a month. Yeah. And apparently it was very similar to what John Paulson did in the sense that it was fixed downside insurance premiums or premiums that are like insurance premiums, fixed downside and a huge upside. And so he did great with that. To me, it's not talked about enough. Like that was an amazing trade. And it was very recent. And when he did that, and when I saw the reporting on that, I did put 2 and 2 together. I was like, oh, this is the same thing John Paulson did in terms of paying premiums, and then the value of the insurance you own goes up a ton. So very cool.
Yeah.